Or are you able to dig and find the foundation within yourself that frees you from fear? Now, when things are going well, it's unlikely that most humans can't be bothered with going deeper. What for? If things are going okay, I'm looking forward to my next vacation. Weekend is coming up, and whatever it is, a nice meal is waiting for me. Everything is comfort zone. You're in your comfort zone. I've never heard of anybody who awakens in their comfort zone. There's nothing wrong with comfort zone. Enjoy them when they're there. They last for a while, and then some form of adversity arises, either on a personal level or on a collective level. Minor forms of adversity, and occasionally huge forms of adversity, potential calamities, whether it's you could suddenly confronted with the fact of mortality, some great loss, serious illness, on a personal level or on a collective level, war, civil strife, civil war, financial collapse, invasion of your country, all kinds of things can happen. And at the present time, we are experiencing the so-called pandemic, collective adversity, not affecting just one person, but now affecting millions at the same time. And this is an invitation to go deeper, because if you don't, you suffer unnecessarily. Millions are in a state of fear and anxiety. But use this as an opportunity to either awaken out of the mind-identified state of consciousness that continuously projects itself into the future, that you have no control over. It is never present. This mind-identified state of consciousness, that's the house built on the sand, or it's an opportunity to come to this realization that you are much deeper than you had known before. You're forced to go deeper because you can't stand the suffering anymore, the unhappiness, or whatever you want to call it, the anxiety. And so the most vital thing in any situation is the state of consciousness with which you meet the situation. And you should pay more attention to that than to the newscasts and whatever it is that you listen to and watch. Yes, you can do that also. But what is your state of consciousness? That's something you can do something about. There's not very much that you can do about the external situation. You can take precautions. You can help other people to the extent to which it is possible. All that's good. You do all the things that you need to do. And perhaps many people are now forced to stay at home, and suddenly you have to be suddenly on a private retreat at home. Well, that's an opportunity too. So use this precious time that is here, because it is part of the awakening consciousness of humanity. It seems almost paradoxical to say that something that on the surface looks very negative and looks like an obstacle to the well-being of humanity, and yes, it's an obstacle to the well-being of humanity on a purely physical level, perhaps temporarily, yes, but something that looks like an obstacle from a conventional point of view is actually an opportunity for you to awaken to a deeper, or you could say higher level of consciousness. Humans don't awaken when they're in their comfort zone. They awaken when they are taken out of their comfort zone. Not everybody does. It's an opportunity. If you do not awaken when you're no longer in your comfort zone, you suffer. You're unhappy, you're anxious, you're fearful. You haven't found the rock. Now, the difference between this parable and actual life is, in this parable, the man had already dug deep and he had already built his house on the rock, and then the floods came and so on, and the house was unshakable. In real life, often it is the case that the wind, the floods, the rains that all beating against the house, which means adversity arising in your life, the adversity forces you, if you haven't already gone deeper, it forces you to go deeper. And so it's not too late to start digging now in the face of adversity. Many of you are already in the process of awakening. Probably most of you listening to this. And what's happening to us now is a wonderful opportunity for you to go deeper, a deepening of that, an acceleration of the awakening. So as much as possible, especially whenever you feel yourself drifting off into a fearful state of consciousness and a fearful emotional state, whenever you realize that in this present moment, there's nothing to fear, and you have to verify this for yourself, whether this is true or not. When you fear something, it's of some imagined future moment. Am I going to catch this disease? Am I going to die? Is a loved one going to catch it? Is a loved one, my child, my parent, are they going to die? Imagine it, it could happen. But right now it's not happening. So whenever you feel yourself drifting off into fear, realize, okay, I have lost the present moment. And I lost myself in my mind, in the thinking mind. And then the emotion reflects that mind activity. So the moment you notice it, okay, I've lost the present moment, I am lost in the mind, come back into the present moment. A few little things are helpful. Be aware of your breathing. Be aware of the inner energy field in your body. The body is alive. This energy, this life energy that pervades the body, you feel that. You're breathing, you feel the aliveness in the body. You're aware of sense perceptions. You look around. You're present. And then again, you become aware of that presence that is inseparable from who you are. That presence that is inseparable from who you are. That's an amazing realization. There's more to you than the person. That presence is deeper than the person. And you needed the adversity either to find it or to deepen that which you had already found it, but it was not yet a deep realization. So, this is a time of great opportunity. Use it. Don't waste it. There's a saying that goes, when the ego weeps for what it has lost, the spirit rejoices for what it has found. So what looks bad on the surface has an essential function. I will speak to you again soon. In the meantime, be here, be present. Don't lose yourself in the mind. Don't lose yourself in fear. Find and be rooted in this rock that is your essence identity. Thank you.
Everyone said you can't succeed, you're not going to succeed. In fact, too many naysayers. So it has been parents, siblings.
Obstacles in its attempt to grow and expand, and it continuously encounters obstacles to its expansion. Every human, in one form or another, if you come into this world, very quickly you'll find obstacles, seeming obstacles to your expansion and growth and well-being and flowering. I think you can all, if you think about your so-called life, how many obstacles life seems to have put in your path towards happiness. And some people perceive life as life continuously is sabotaging my attempts to find happiness. Why is that? And then they have these strange theories that God is against me. whatever the theory is. But it does seem like, and this is related to the Buddhist term dukkha or suffering, wherever you go, you will find life is sometimes helpful and then obstacles again. And this is perceived as, some people believe if you only practice positive thinking continuously, you will no longer encounter obstacles. But that unfortunately is not the case. Positive thinking is a great thing, can be extremely helpful and bring about certain shifts in you, but it does not free you from experiencing the obstacles that life will put in your path and the challenges that come. So those obstacles, whether they come in the form of loss or illness or relationship problems, many of them arise from their own mind, because your mind creates an enormous amount of problems that are quite unnecessary, but the mind doesn't know that. So the mind creates an enormous amount of conflict that is unnecessary in your life. That's one kind of obstacle, is your own mind. Then, and again, you need to experience the consequences of the obstacles that your own mind creates, the conflicts and the unnecessary problems that your own mind, because you're identified with the mind, creates. You need to experience the suffering that you create for yourself out of that unconsciousness. Unconsciousness means completely identifying with the mind, the egoic mind, which in many cases transforms challenges which could be solved easily into much bigger problems. So you have your mind created obstacles that you ultimately create yourself because you're not conscious enough, and then you encounter suffering. This is one level of suffering. And you need to experience the suffering that comes through unconscious use of the mind in order to awaken. It's only through the suffering that eventually you go, can't take anymore. As happened to me when I was in bed one night and said, I can't live with myself anymore. And then somehow I realized that this myself that I couldn't live with anymore was an illusion. An illusory entity, and very unhappy mind-created entity. But before I realized that, I had to go through this suffering for years and years. So the suffering worked. It fulfilled its purpose. And then you have another level of suffering or obstacles. Obstacles come to you seemingly from the outside, that suddenly you have an accident, an illness that's a kind of outside. It's something seems to happen to you that you have not contributed to. Something happens to somebody close to you, dies as an accident. Many things can happen, but you seem, I haven't created that. Of course, in New Age, it's very normal to say when things go wrong in your life, the typical New Age person will say, how did you create that? You slipped on a banana skin and broke your leg. Why did you create that? How did you create that? It's an interesting question. I don't want to go into this, whether even those obstacles or challenges that come to you, not seemingly not from your own mind, but from the outside, did you still create that or not? Let's leave that aside. I don't want to convince anybody one way or another. I have a much more simple recipe here, which goes like this. Instead of telling people, you better look at your life and see why you created that or how you created that, I say, accept each moment as if you had created it. Accept each moment as if you had wanted it or caused it, wanted it to happen. I can't remember my own writings. it's always not good to go into memory. Don't quote, just present moment. So, but if you live, whatever happens, you accept this moment as if you had chosen. That's the one I wrote. Accept each moment as if you had chosen it. So that's a good recipe for working, because if it already is the case, you might as well accept whatever is as if you had chosen it, because it's already here. So I'm not telling people you chose it. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Doesn't matter. Still accept it as if you had chosen it. That shifts things. That your whole attitude to it shifts, and it dissolves more quickly than whatever the obstacle is. But let's go back to the suffering. First, the suffering that arises from your own mind creates conflict and all those things that create suffering, and then at some point you awaken. And then what remains is the suffering that comes with having a body, for example, because eventually the body gets older. No matter how much you go to the gym every day, no matter how fantastic your nutrition is, no matter how many pills for longer life you take, which is all fine and good, but of course every form eventually dissolves, and the time comes when the body can be perceived as a burden almost. The older you get, the more likely it is to happen. And so, of course, you might then say old age isn't so bad if you consider the alternative, which is you die younger and then you don't have to experience the body getting fragile and old. But if you get old, the body can become problematic, a source of suffering, potentially. But those challenges, if approached correctly, don't have to turn into suffering. Accept each moment as if you had chosen it. If you can go with the isness of things, there's no complaining entity that says something about being a victim and complaining how dreadful things are now. I wish my mother had learned that lesson when she suffered in that way, because she had always identified very much with her body. Good looking, always nicely dressed, going out, and liked to be looked at, very normal thing for many people. And then the body got older and older, and then hip problems and other fractures, and this, it got worse and worse, and the unhappiness grew and grew. Not so much of the limited movement, but the identity. And so much was in the body that was tremendous suffering. I tried to free her, and occasionally there were moments when she could disidentify from body, but very, very brief. And that is the destiny of many humans. But the suffering is really that every life form encounters, the obstacles that every life form encounters, whether they come at a younger age, older age, middle age, in whatever form. These things are absolutely necessary, without which there would be no human evolution whatsoever, and no life form would ever evolve if the life form did not encounter obstacles. So that which looks like an obstacle is actually always potentially an opening. Potentially, that seems to stop your progress in life, always potentially can make you more conscious. So you can use every obstacle that arises in your life. If you can works especially quickly, if you accept each moment as if you had chosen it, and when it looks like this moment is an obstacle, you go with it instead of complaining or running away from it. And then accept and then act if action is possible, or don't act if no action is possible. You identify with thinking, and the identification with thinking becomes ego. And there are many people in this world who are stuck with hostile, life-denying, continuously critical and attacking entities that they carry in their head, and they believe that is who they are. To become free of ego means becoming free of thought, identification with thought. That's the end of the ego.
There is a shortage of 500,000 machine learning and artificial intelligence professionals. Keeping this in mind, the University of Texas at Austin brings you a comprehensive course in artificial. Switch to Consumer Cellular and only pay for what you really need, like talk, text, and data for only $20 a month. There's no contract, so you can change your plan whenever you like, which means you'll always enjoy the.
There's been so many people this year that have gone missing, died of hypothermia. So I have an obligation to you members, subscribers, viewers in general, to show some safety survival tips in different conditions. I'm going to show you a couple of ways that we can start a fire with a dead lighter as well. I know these tricks work, or I wouldn't be showing them to you. Hi, I'm Greg Ovens, and this is Ovens Rocky Mountain Bushcraft. There we go. Oh. Starvation is usually not an issue, but hypothermia is the #1 killer of lost hikers and people stranded in the bush. So we got to get back to basics. A lot of these people, from the research I've done, are day hikers because they're not prepared. They're not planning on getting lost. But when they get lost, they get in a situation. They don't have a raincoat and they don't have a way of starting a fire. And even if it's warm, 70 degrees out, if the weather changes, it starts raining, you get wet, you don't have a raincoat, you can get hypothermia, even in the summer when it's warm. Now, I've shown lots of different fire starting methods, but you can't rely on a bow drill if it's raining. The sandwich bag trick, you can't rely on that if it's cloudy. There's variables. People that are going overnight or for 2 or 3 days usually are prepared, and that's why it's not as dangerous for that group. So, #1, always take a lighter. Don't plan that you can start a bow drill fire because you've seen some of my videos or somebody else's videos. Don't leave home without a lighter. Most of these people that have died this year in BC, and I can't even imagine how many through North America or the world that have died of hypothermia this year just because they didn't have a lighter. Don't leave home without it, for crying out loud. This is the kind of thing you're going to look for. Now, it's winter here, but, rain, snow, whatever the case may be, a dry place is usually under a big tree like this one. It's got a lot of needles, a lot of branches. It'll keep the rain and the snow out. Now, actually, fire is easier to start in the winter when it's cold like this than when it's raining. But even if it's raining, we're going to have dry needles under this tree. This is a place, let's say that you're injured, you can't build a shelter. You can lie against the base of a big tree, have your fire here, and you're going to stay warm and dry. It's that simple. And these needles, as long as we've got a lighter, we can start a fire. That kind of went out. But you see, they've got some turpentine in them. They will burn. So, man alive, just make sure you got a lighter. Put that out. But I'll show you a couple other good shelter spots. And mostly I'd like to deal with rain because the people that I know or heard about on the news this year. It wasn't really winter conditions. It's just the weather changed. They didn't plan on getting lost. They didn't plan on the weather changing. But you can't rely on the weather forecasts, let's face it. It'd be nice if the sun would come out shortly. So you're in a t-shirt and shorts, and it's 70 degrees out, but now it starts raining, and you don't even have a lighter. That is just foolishness. Most of these people that I heard about this year would have lived probably days or a week if they had a fire until somebody found them. Back to basics. No bow drills on this one. And the other thing you can do with these dry needles is you can, under these big trees, you can pile this up for bedding. You can warm rocks to put under it, like I showed in another video, fire starting with the sandwich bag video. If you haven't checked that, go back. Warm rocks are a good thing. But you can make yourself a bed. You can have your fire there. And you can make something comfortable. You can cover yourself with these dry needles. Like I say, hypothermia, it sneaks up on you, and I've had it a few times, and I've used these tricks to survive. So I know what I'm talking about. Not everybody has the skill set to be able to start a bow drill fire. And even if you have the skill set, the conditions could be against you. Oh, I can't get warm. I can't move my hands.
I'm Chris, sometimes known amongst other things as Old Man. We'll get more into how I got.
I've got hypothermia. So don't take a chance with your life for the sake of not bringing a lighter as a backup. I'm telling you, man. Now, I'd be fine just starting a fire right here, staying by this big tree. There's lots of firewood in the area. That's another thing to look for. Don't try to find a spot and you've got no firewood. You got to have firewood if your life's on the line. Now, if your life's on the line, you're going to start a bonfire, and then maybe people will find you. But you have to be careful with that idea. You don't want to burn the whole forest down and it's windy, and all of a sudden you can't get out of the forest fire. But I guarantee you they'll find you. Maybe a group of trees that's off by itself, so it's not a danger to start the whole forest on fire. That's the kind of stuff you do in a survival situation. This video is about survival, not bushcraft. There's a difference. So now I'm in a spot, little different setup. We've got some big overhanging rocks. And this is another good spot to look for, is where you have some overhanging rocks. Usually you can find a good spot for a shelter. So we're going to look around here. I'll show you another good spot. Now look at how good this is. Big overhang. Can't even reach. And the ground is soft here. It's kind of like flour, the dirt here under this. This is like a very soft shale. Perfect spot. This is what I call a perfect spot. This is even better than under the tree because I'm protected from the wind, from the rocks, and I got a big cove to get in. I can have my fire right here. And there is firewood around. This is ideal. Absolutely ideal for an overnight shelter in an emergency without having to build a shelter. Find spots that you don't have to build a shelter in an emergency because that takes energy and effort. And sometimes if you're injured, you won't be able to build a shelter anyway. But if you got a lighter, you should be able to start a fire. This is what I like. So now I'm going to show you one of the safest places to be in a survival situation. Your vehicle. Got my truck here. Now let's assume that I get stuck, the truck breaks down. It's still the safest place than trying to hike 30, 40 miles out of the bush. You're out of the wind, you're out of the rain, and hopefully it'll run so you have heat. But if not, you can heat up, as long as you get a fire going, you can heat up rocks and put in there to keep the cab warm. You have to put something down like a flat rock to put the hot rocks on so you don't burn, the truck down. But safest place. A lot of people have left their vehicle to try to hike out and ended up dead too. So, but you have to remember, you gotta make sure people know where you're going when you go on these day hikes. If they don't know where to look for you, not going to find you, are they? You're in a survival situation. You see behind me this slash pile. They've logged the hillside behind me, piled these logs up. This is a good spot to build your fire, because when this pile starts burning, it's going to burn for a week, maybe more, maybe a month. And not only that, but people will see the flame, the smoke, and maybe come looking for you if they know where to look.
If you do have pets, like we do,
So survival situations, keep these things in mind. But if I'm in a survival situation, I'm going to burn a pile like this. I'm not just going to be going collecting wood. I'm going to burn a pile that's going to burn for a month. Right? I'm sure we all know birch bark. If you have it in your area with a lighter, very simple. Burns for a long time. Don't need paper in the bush. But maybe you don't have birch bark where you are. I'm going to show you behind me, I've got this tree with little branches. I'm going to show you how to start a fire with that. You don't need paper, you don't need birch bark. I showed you the pine needles earlier. They work good. You find them at the base of the tree. That's a good fire starter as well. But make sure you got your branches ready before you attempt a fire. These branches, this tree is out in the open, but even in a rainstorm, underneath a big tree, the dead branches underneath the branches that come down will be dry. So you can do it easily with these little branches too, with a lighter as well. Don't leave home without it. So I got my little branches. What I usually do is I'll take the branches, break them in half. Now I got them like this. Break them in half, turn it around, and then we got this. Now all we got to do is use our lighter, hold it on an angle like this. And you'll see, you got to let the lighter burn for a while. If I can flick it. You hold it upside down. Who needs paper? Just keep the lighter going until this gets going good. But I'm using the little ones. Just little guys. Starting to get hot in my hand. Now I'll take this and put it underneath my fire that I've already prepared. I got my fire ready to go. Getting hot in the hand now. At least I won't get frostbite. Make sure you get the little dry guys. When you bunch them up like that, it'll go like crazy. You don't need paper, and you don't need birch bark. You don't even need the pine needles if you do it this way.
So it's it's a great business to have. So you're looking at 30, 40,000 a month.
I got my commission of
lying motherfuckers.
So now you've seen some of the places that you want to find shelter. I've shown a couple of ways of starting the fires with a lighter. Now what I want to do is show you, even if your lighter's dead, I chose one that just has spark, doesn't flame. I'm going to show you a couple of ways that we can start a fire with a dead lighter as well. As long as you have even a dead lighter, you can start a fire. It's December, and we can still find the little pods on the dogbane. But these are an important thing you can find even in the winter. Dogbane's a pretty common plant. We use these seeds to get a fire going. Then I will show you one other method of starting a fire with a dead lighter. These tricks are important. They could save your life, but don't leave home without a lighter, as I keep emphasizing. Now I got my dogbane seeds, and I collect a little bit of fine, dead, dry grass. And what I really like for a one spark situation is these dead junipers, or any dead needles really. If the grass catches, these will go up, and we go from there. Build our fire up bigger and bigger. The dogbane seeds, when they catch, are only going to burn for about half a second. They go up instantly, but it should be enough to start the grass and then start our dead needles of whatever kind we're using. And you'll notice there's been no joking or humor in this video because it's serious. Fire is #1 survival thing to master if your life's on the line. You can go without water for a week, and usually there's snow this time of year where I am. But if you get hypothermia, you can get it in the summer if it's raining. So master fire, it's important. And I should mention too, I'm going to be using dogbane seeds. Other seeds work: thistle, ammoni, dryad, goat's beard, all these. But what I like about the dogbane, which is a common plant, is the pods stay dry. So even if it's raining, the seeds will be dry inside the dogbane pods. Dead grass, juniper, and then we're going to work up with sticks. But you know what? It's important to know how to start a fire with a dead lighter that just sparks. So this is an important part of this video. I'm going to make a pocket right here under the tree with these dead needles, and this should go almost immediately. Now, if it's windy, you need to protect these seeds. Keep this handy. Dead lighter.
Dogbane.
Now I want to scrape the needles away. I don't want to have a forest fire, but mind you, there's snow around me. We have fire with a dead lighter. Important trick.
It's never been easier to refinance with Quicken Loans. Here's how. Simply click the button, answer some questions like home typing.
So with our second fire, we're going to be using, just with the spark from the lighter, some dead rotted stump. Now, if you go back to some of my other videos, this is an important thing to remember. Dry rotted stump you want with bow drill fires. If you go back and watch the solo overnight video where I started the fire with the sandwich bag, that's what I got that fire going with. So now we're going to take our dry rotted stump. Now this method is more reliable because anywhere in the world you should be able to find dry rotted stump. Even if it's at the base of a tree where insects or ants, you'll see powder under there that's dry, will work the same way. Now, it's more difficult than the dogbane seeds or any seeds, but you might be out at a time of year when there is no seeds. If it's spring, there's no dandelions or clematis or any of the wild seeds that ignite right away. This is a reliable but a bit more difficult procedure or method. I want to grind it into a powder. You've seen me use this for bow drills, other methods, but seeds are preferable. You've seen it only took 2 flicks of the lighter. I had that fire instantly. We're going to cover the top of this stump, and then basically I'm going to use this like a running board for the lighter to try to get the powder started into a coal. And then we got something to work with. Fire is number 1 in survival. And I don't care what anybody says. I know I got a lot of survivalists and preppers that watch my channel. But I beg to argue with anybody. If it wasn't for fire, I would have been dead 6 times over by now. But I'm still here doing these videos because of fire. So what I'm going to do with the dead lighter, I'm going to take my dry rotted stump and then I'll fill it up like this, hold it like this, and you'll see that we'll actually get flame even though we don't have butane in it still, because the fine dust will actually catch on fire inside the lighter. And we should get enough flame to actually start some grass on fire. Crush our stump up nice and fine in our fingers. We fill this up. The dust will be so fine. It's like when they get them fires in the grain elevators just from the dust from the grain. I'll try to show you here that this, you'll see little puffs of flame, even from the dead lighter. Some of it will fall out. Don't worry about that. See, we got flame there. We had a flame. See, flame. My dry grass now. Like I say, that powder is so fine. Shake it up. I'm just going to put our grass here, and hopefully it gets enough flame to start the grass. If you don't succeed at first, just keep trying. Wouldn't see any flame that time. I think this grass might not be fine enough. This grass is a bit finer. Oh, it doesn't blow away. More powder in. Don't get discouraged if these things don't work right off the hop. You got to, especially if your life's on the line, you can't give up. I know these tricks work, or I wouldn't be showing them to you. It went, see? I'm not going to start a fire this time, but you see, just that powder, just with spark, you get enough flame to get your grass going. Man alive, pay attention to these tricks and always carry a lighter. Okay, I hope you learned something from that. I hope one day maybe these tricks will save someone's life. Don't leave home without a lighter. Stay with your vehicle. If it's running, you've got a good place. Carry a blanket in your vehicle. And also, if you're going on a day hike, take a raincoat. Hopefully these tricks are really helpful to you. I will be showing other ones, other fire starting methods. If you haven't seen the one where I started the fire with the vehicle, go back and check that one. The more fire tricks you know, the better off you are in the great outdoors.
In this video, I take the new Hammerhead Carry 2 for a ride with my friend Luis. We have a coffee with it. I'm
going to show you another survival fire starting method. Chris here, way out in the middle of nowhere, slid off the road. Went up this road, and these folks haven't come back out yet. It's kind of an emergency, so it's not a good situation. Hi, I'm Greg Ovens, and this is Ovens Rocky Mountain Bushcraft. There we go. Oh. Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do for this video is make my favorite dinner. I checked on the shaggy mains on my way to Vancouver Island and there was no sign of them. And now I've come back. They must have had rain here and it obviously froze. And now the shaggy mains are popping up. I'll show you. I'm going to collect a few and then do my favorite dinner, except for my Permigi, of course. But those are my two favorite. I want to do shaggy mains with grouse, just breaded, cooked in oil. So I'm going to collect some mushrooms. We'll see what else we can see. And let's do her. The knife's getting a little rusty. It'll clean up though. Not too worried. See it. Seems to be out of focus. Yeah. Anyways, we'll just take this guy. I mean, I do cut the stems off with my knife. And I like to get the ones that haven't even opened up yet. They're nice and firm. So I know that this will last until tonight when I hopefully get my grouse to go with this dinner with the shaggy mains. If they start opening up, they go black in just hours. You have to deal with them right away. So I'm trying to get the tight-headed ones that haven't opened up yet. And that's what I want for my dinner tonight. So I just thought I would talk about another plant that I haven't showed yet. This is mullein. You can make a tea out of the leaves, but you have to strain it because the little hairs will come off and get stuck in your throat and it's very irritating. But the thing is, the First Nations people used to take the seeds from this plant, grind it up, and they would throw it in like a lake or a still pool, and the fish would come to the surface. Now, it doesn't drug or poison the fish. Basically what it does is it cuts their oxygen supply off temporarily so that they float to the top and you can collect them. And I know this works. I've already said too much. But anyways, so this time of year is when you collect them. They're easy to collect. You grind those up. And if you're in a survival situation, I can't demonstrate this for you. I can just tell you about it. And then you would throw that in a still pond. Running water doesn't work. It has to be still water. And then as the seeds go down, it basically, I think what it does, you'd have to research it a bit more, is it attaches to the gills of the fish temporarily, not permanently, just temporarily to cut the oxygen supply. But anyways, another good plant to know in a survival situation. And like I say, the tea is not that bad. The First Nations people also used to dry the leaves and smoke it because it's supposed to be very good for your lungs. The tea and smoking it. I don't know how smoke can be good for your lungs, but they used to use it for bronchitis and that type of thing. So it's almost the end of the plant season, but anything that I can find at this point, I will show you. But this is one of my favorites. Like I say, I mean, it's just a fantastic plant. You can make tea from the leaves and the flowers. But like I say, if you're making it from the leaves, strain it very, very good because the fibers from the leaves, they get stuck in your throat. I don't know if you'll see them, but they're very, very fine fibers on that. And so when you make your tea, they'll get stuck in your throat and it's very, very irritating. Another little tip from Greg Ovens. Okay, so just want to say that even though this video is about cooking a grouse and my shaggy mains, my favorite wild mushroom, that we actually are in a town about 2.5 hours from where I live, actually picking up and rescuing a grouse. Sounds ironic, hopefully not hypocritical. But I'm into rescuing animals as well. Even when I'm hunting, I will only take 1 or 2 birds out of a flock. So my daughter, I came with her, and we rescued this grouse that hit a window. She's rescued owls and eagles this year. And also, I remember a couple of years ago, we took a bear that ended up in Smithers, BC, where they have a rescue center for bears. We drove it all the way, got it to the rescue center. And actually, that was interesting. I kept stopping to buy it fish and stuff like that along the way.
Hi, honey. There you go. You're hungry? Yes. Hi, honey.
But anyways, that was an interesting little rescue that we did with that little bear cub. So anyway, show you the grouse, and I still have to get 1 or 2 for myself for my dinner, unfortunately. But I do have a heart. We do still look after the wildlife as best we can. It's not all about hunting with me. It loves the elderberries, dandelions. What else we feed it? And crickets. I forgot about that.